So this week you are going to be looking at the artist Alexander Rodchenko. And Rodchenko was a Russian artist, sculptor, photographer and graphic designer. He was one of the founders of constructivism and Russian design. Rodchenko was one of the most versatile constructivist and productivist artists to emerge after the Russian Revolution. He worked as a painter and graphic designer before turning to photomontage and photography. His photography was socially engaged, formally innovative, and opposed to a painterly aesthetic. Concerned for the need for analytical documentary photo series, he often shot his subjects from odd angles, usually high above or down below, to shock the viewer and to postpone recognition. He wrote, "One has to take several different shots of a subject from different points of view and in different situations, as if one examined it in the round rather than look through the same keyhole again and again." So a few examples of some of his photos here. So just considering, going back to last week and considering some of the 10 crucial concepts of photography that we looked at, obviously the first thing that I noticed is perhaps the framing of it. So the fact that some of these photos are really zoomed into an object, they're filling up the whole frame, so they're not necessarily isolated objects off in the distance. And from that point of view, it does take you perhaps a moment to consider what you're actually seeing and what the photograph is of. Again, as was mentioned before, Rodchenko was famous for taking photos at different angles and considering the placement of where he was standing when he was taking the photograph. So was he taking it from below? Was he taking it from above, from the side? And obviously creating these really strong diagonal lines, and there's a high contrast because it's black and white, so there's a real difference between the light and the shadow in all of his pictures. And there's a lot of texture that's being created with the shadows as well. And what does it say, what is the meaning, and what does it sort of convey about the people in the photographs? Why is this lady up in this top third here with her half her head chopped off? What does that say about the photograph, and how does that influence what you're seeing? So again, looking at some more photographs here, so some really strong parallel lines going on in there and some diagonal lines, a lot of geometric shapes, and considering lots of pattern as well in there. And then coming on to his portraiture, obviously the shadows when you're taking it in black and white are quite strong. Taking it from underneath and above, and what does that say about the person? Why is it not just taken face on? And also this one in the top right hand corner here, it's obviously a picture of a reflection, which is quite an interesting thing to do in photography. Again, even looking at it, it's still quite hard to figure out what is going on in the background and how that's been taken and what the picture is of exactly, and how big or small the picture of the people is within the frame of the photograph. So your task one, what I'd like you to do is just briefly read up a little bit about constructivism and productivism in art. You might also want to do a quick brief research about the Russian Revolution. How do you think this was reflected in Rodchenko's photography, and how might that influence your own photograph? So I'm not going to tell you too much about what it is. I'd like you to do your own research for it and consider how you, if you're going out now to take some photos, you might bring that into it. Task one, I would like you to take 5 photos of buildings at some interesting angles and perspectives. So again, thinking about constructivism, what kind of maybe buildings you're looking at, if you've got some Russian type buildings near where you live. Task 2, take 5 portraits at interesting angles. So this could be of yourself, or if you've got any family members or friends around, then you could have a go at taking pictures of them. Task 3, I would like you to take 5 photos of textures at different angles. So again, considering the sort of constructivist influence in the textures that you're looking at. So is it going to be fruits and flowers, or is it going to be more hard edged than that? So consider that a little bit when you are taking pictures of your textures. I'd like you to do them in black and white, and share them on Teams when you are done. So if you can add them to the posts page so that everyone can see them, that would be great. Things to consider. So again, thinking back to the concepts last week, or some of them, negative space. So if you are picturing an object, or if you're picturing a person, thinking about what's going on in the background, how much negative space and at what position they are in the frame. Filling the frame, are you doing a close-up or are you zooming out? Diagonal lines, parallel lines, reflections, symmetry or asymmetry and balance, and then light and shadow or graphic outlines and silhouettes. So this might not take you the whole lesson, but if you can, it'd be great to get outside and go for a walk and take some interesting photos outside as well. And if the other bonus tasks are, you currently have access to the Adobe Creator Suite for free. If you can, it'd be great for you to download Photoshop to a computer at home, and you can follow the instructions on Godalming online. And if you missed last week, you can head to Files and Week 1. You can have a look through the PowerPoint presentation to get an idea of what we covered. So this PowerPoint presentation will be on Week 2, so you can have a flick through it again. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy doing your photography tasks today, and I'll catch up with you shortly.